Hey guys, so today we are going to be working with simplifying fractions. Now, simplifying fractions basically just means that we are going to take our fraction and we're going to make the numerator and the denominator of the fraction as small of numbers as we possibly can. Now, it's important to remember that when we're changing the numerator and the denominator, when simplifying fractions, we're not actually changing the value of the fraction. So even though we're making the numbers smaller, we're not actually making a smaller fraction. One way to look at this is by looking at our visual representation here. Here we have three fractions, 1/2, 2/4, and 4/8. Now you'll see that even though 4/8 has both a larger numerator and denominator, the fractions are actually equal. A lot of times students want to think that because the numbers are larger in this fraction, the fraction itself is larger. But we can see that our 1/2 fraction, 2/4 fraction, and 4/8 fraction all have the same amount of their boxes shaded. Now the real question though that we want to figure out is how can we simplify our fractions? How can we get from 4/8 to 1/2, which would be the simplest form because it has the smallest numbers on the both numerator and denominator without changing the value of a fraction. So we're going to do that here in just a moment. Okay, so let's take any sort of fraction we have. Let's start with 5/15. When we're looking to make our fraction simpler, we have to ask ourselves if there's anything that both the top number and bottom number can be divided by. Now, if you can't find a number that both your top and bottom, both your numerator and your denominator can be divided by, then it's already in simplest form. Okay, so we need to find a number that we can divide by 5 evenly to get a whole number, and a number that we can divide 15 by to get a whole number. And these two numbers have to be the same. So if you divide the numerator by a certain number, you also have to divide the denominator by that same number. One way to do this is by looking at our multiplication chart. So if you look at our multiplication chart, we need to find a row or a column that has both 5 and 15 in it. That's how we're going to know that that number can divide both of those. So we can start at 0, but we know that all of those are going to be 0. We can start at 1, but we also know that every number will eventually show up in 1. So where I usually start is in 2. So I'm going to look through 2. I'm going to see if I can find 5. Now, I've gotten to 6 here. And since I know that 5 is smaller than 6, I know that 5 is not going to show up anywhere in 2. Even if 15 shows up somewhere here in our 2 row, it's still not going to matter because it doesn't also have 5. It can't divide both of those numerators and denominators. So we'll move down to 3. I hit 6 again, so there's no 5 there. We'll move down to 4. I hit 8, so there's no 5 there. I'll move down to 5. We know there's going to be a 5 in 5. Okay, we're going to keep moving, and we found our 15. So we found a number here that we can divide both 5 and 15 by, and that number is 5 here at the end. So we looked through our rows and columns, and then we found our number here on the side. 5 is what we're going to use to divide our fraction by. So let's go back to our fraction. We're going to divide both the top and the bottom by 5. Okay? Divide the top by 5, divide the bottom by 5. That's going to give us our new simpler fraction. Okay? So if we divide 5 by 5, we're going to get 1. If we divide 15 by 5, we're going to get 3. So now our simpler fraction is 1/3. We can go further and we can see if there's anything we can divide both 1 and 3 by to see if we can make this fraction simpler, but the hint is that if your numerator is 1, your fraction's in simplest form, okay, because we can't divide 1 by anything besides 1 to get a whole number. So this fraction is in simplest form. 5/15 equals 1/3. Let's do another one. Okay, this time let's do 6/36. Okay. So we need to find something that both 6 and 36 can be divided by. We're going to go back to our multiplication chart here. We're going to look for something that both 6 and 36 are in. So, like I said, we don't really need to worry about 0 and 1. We're going to start with 2. So we found a 6, okay. And keep going, keep going, keep going. And we end here at 24 because ours ends at 12. So we can keep going if we need to, but let's first see if we can go and see if there's another number that we can use to divide by. So 3, we got a 6, okay. Let's keep going across. And we have 36, so 3 is a number we can use, okay? So let's use our number 3 here to divide both 6 and 36. Okay. Divide by 3, divide by 3. 6 divided by 3 we know is 2. 36 divided by 3 is 12. We have to look at this fraction now. We've got 2/12. We need to find a way to see if we can make this fraction any simpler. Okay, so we're going to go back to our multiplication chart and see if we can find anything that we can divide both 2 and 12 by. Okay, let's start in our 2's. We've got a 2, that's good. And we've got a 12, so we can divide 2 and 12 by 2. Divide these both by 2. We know that 2 divided by 2 is 1. We know that 12 divided by 2 is 6. So our new fraction is 1/6. Since this one has a 1 in the numerator, we know that that's as simple as it can get. So 6/36 equals 12, or 2/12, and it also equals 1/6. Something that you should note is that your final simplest form will not always have a 1 in the numerator. Sometimes simplest form does have other small numbers in the numerators, but oftentimes we can get it down to having a 1 in the numerator, which makes it really nice and easy for us. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in class.